we need to move the constant to the left side. Y plus 21, leave a space, equals x squared minus 16x. Now I need to complete the square to figure out what the h value is, and when I complete the square, we'll add something to both sides, and that will calculate the k value. So this is going to be x minus, not 4, 8. It's half of the middle term. So 16 divided by 2 is 8. 8 squared is 64. So if I add 64 to the right side, I need to add it to the left side. And y plus 85 equals x minus 8 to the second. Yeah, that is the vertex form. So we're converting between standard form and vertex form, yes. Because it's x squared minus 16x plus 64 factors into x minus 8 times x minus 8. So if you were to line up the x minus 8s next to each other and distribute, you would get that top one. And really all we did was factored it. So this tells me the signs are the same. This tells me they're both negative. Are there factors of 64 that add to be 16? 8 and negative 8. And they just happen to be the same because that system we used guarantees that they're the same. So we drop, what we did is this. So those two equations are equivalent. One has been distributed and the other hasn't. Okay, good question. So letter B, move the 26 over. So x minus 26. And then I need to pull out this 1/4. I cannot complete the square if there's a leading coefficient. So 1/4 y squared, and this is a little tricky. How do you pull a 1/4 out of a negative 6? How many 1/4s are there in 6? 24 of them. So if we remove that 1/4, then we have 24y, leave a space. Is everybody okay with that? Okay. So 1/4 times, what is my factor? Y minus 12. Everybody understand that? So y minus 12 to the second. If 12 is my factor, what is my perfect square? 144. So plus 144, but it's really not a 144. It's a 144 hiding underneath a 1/4. So when I pull that out of the parentheses and it gets hit by a 1/4, what does it turn into? Well, what's 1/4 of 144? You guys are just trusting me. You don't even have your calculators out. 36. So it's really a positive 36. So when I add 36 to the left side, I get x plus 10. What direction does that parabola open toward? It opens to the right. Correct. Okay, letter C. I made a mistake. That's supposed to be a negative 79. So change that. So we're going to add 79 to the left side. Leave a space. Equals. That negative 3 is in the way. So I need to pull out a negative 3. So negative 3. If I pull that out, what's left? X squared minus 10x. Right. Okay. So now my factor is going to be x minus 5 squared. If 5 is my factor, what is my perfect square? 25, but it's not really a 25. It's negative 3 times 25, which is negative 75. So I'm going to subtract 75 on the left, and I get y plus 4. Yeah. So what direction does that parabola open toward? Down. It's a y equal, so it's either up or down. A is negative, so it's down. And it's going to be 3 times skinny. Okay, so that should have been review from yesterday. If you look at part D, these are really easy. If we start with vertex form and we convert into a standard form, that's super simple. All you have to do is distribute the perfect square and then add or subtract whatever's on the side. And sometimes you have to multiply by a. So here's a mistake you don't want to make. Oh, x plus 6 squared, that's easy. X squared plus 36. That is not true. It's never been true. What you have to do is set them next to each other and distribute. So x plus 6 times x plus 6, and then I'm going to add the 5 on the end. So x squared plus 6x plus 6x plus 36 plus 5. Now, if you're smart, which you guys are, do you see a pattern there? The middle term is going to become double the factor, and the last term is going to become the square of the factor. This is like reverse complete the square. In complete the square, we create the factor, and in this method, we use the factor to write the equation. So it's really just x squared plus twice the 6, which is 12x, plus this squared, which is 36, add the 5, is 41. Is that pattern going to be true every time we do one of these? Yes, because they're all squared. They're all binomials. What's that? Yeah, that's the equation. Y equals. What's that? Yeah, yeah. But if you're smart, you don't even need to do all of this. You should be able to just look at it and write it out, because it follows the same pattern every time. As long as those two factors are the same, that pattern will always be true. The middle term is twice the factor, the end term is the square of the factor. If that doesn't make sense to you, then do it the long way. It's fine. All right, part E. So we have a leading coefficient. So I'm going to say negative 2 times whatever I get when I square it. And then I'm going to move this 2 over plus 2. Yes. Right. Right. That negative 2 does not affect the positive 2. It only affects what's inside those parentheses. So I could line up y plus 1, y plus 1, but I know what it's going to look like. What's the first term going to be? Y squared. What's the middle term going to be? It's going to be 1 times y plus 1 times y, which is y plus y, which is 2y. And the reason it's 2y is because it's double that times that. So 1 times y and then double it. Okay? What is the last term going to be? 1 times 1. So this is plus 1. And like Kelton said, do I multiply the negative 2 in first, or do I add the 2 in first? You multiply first, and the addition comes at the end. So if I multiply these, negative 2y squared, multiply those, negative 4y. If I multiply those, I get negative 2, and then I add 2 to that, which is 0. So that, oh, sorry, x equals, that is standard form right there. Pretty simple, right? Okay, let's try another one. Letter F. So I add 3.25, 0.25, oops. So I have negative 5 times, oh, thank you. I'm all sorts of off. Subtract that. Turn the whole thing in. So what is the quadratic on the inside? X squared minus, so it's 2.5 times 2, which is 5. So minus 5x, and what is 2.5 squared? 6.25? 25 squared is 625, right? So this is plus 6.25, and then I have subtract 3.25 on the end. Does that make sense to everybody? Where'd you get lost, Connor? Yeah, it's just x times x, and then x times negative 2.5, and right. So we distribute first, and then we bring in the multiplication, and then we add or subtract. All right, so let's times this in. Negative 5x squared plus 25x. What is that? 31.25? What did I do? 31.25, and then we add an additional negative 3.25, which bumps it down to, should be minus 34.5. I did that kind of fast. Did anybody get lost? Yeah, that's y equals. Thank you. All right, one more. So 1 over 4 times y minus 8 times y minus 8. So y squared minus 16y plus 64. And then on the end I have a minus 2. Now we need to distribute this 1/4. What is 1/4 times y squared? What do you mean? It's 1/4 y squared. Yeah, just 1 over 4 times y squared. Or you could put y squared over 4. It doesn't matter. So 1/4 y squared minus 1/4 of 16 is 4. So 4y plus 1/4 of 64 is 16. And then I subtract the 2, so that turns the 16 into a 14, x equals. What direction does that quadratic open toward? To the right. Okay. All right, these last two problems are the hard ones. Now, most of what's there is easy. The trouble is finding the a value. So I know that this equation is either in the form y minus k equals a times x minus h squared. That covers the up and down parabolas. Left and right parabolas, you just switch the x's and y's. Oops. And that covers the right-left parabolas. So they've given us two pieces of information. We know where the vertex is, and we know the equation of the directrix. So unless you're not, I'm a really visual person, graphing it I think is the easiest way to do it. But maybe you're less visual than me, and that's fine. You can figure it out another way. So I'm going to draw a little graph. My vertex is at 8, 9. And my directrix is y equals. If my directrix is a y equals equation, what does that tell me about the parabola? It's either up or down. So my directrix is either right below the dot, in which case the parabola would open up, or the directrix is right above the dot, in which case the parabola would open down. Does everybody understand that? So just the fact that the directrix is horizontal guarantees that we use this equation. Without even knowing where it is, just because it's horizontal, we know it's that equation. Well, I also know my h and my k. That was given to me in the vertex. So I can fill out most of the equation right now without doing any math. So it's going to be y minus my k value is 9 equals, I don't know my a yet, but it's x minus 8 squared. Anybody not understand that? Okay. So let's figure out where the directrix is. What is the decimal for 73/8? 9.125. So the line y equals 9.125 is where in relationship to my vertex? It's above. So my directrix is this line here. We can throw that red line away. Does that tell us anything about the equation? A is negative. Why? The directrix is above the vertex, which means that the parabola opens down. If the parabola opens down, then A is negative. So we can put a negative right here. So all of that's really easy. The tricky part is figuring out what A is. So we need to know how open is the parabola. How do we figure that out? Well, and you could use the focus point, but we don't have it. It's a relationship between the directrix and the vertex. No, and the vertex doesn't have any, the vertex does not determine the openness of the parabola. The distance between the vertex and the directrix is everything. So we learned yesterday that the focal distance, which is the distance from the focus to the vertex, which is the same thing as the distance from the vertex to the directrix, that distance is given by what equation? 1 over 4a. Well, this equation has two parts, a focal distance and an a. Do we know either of those? We can figure out the focal distance. Right. How far is it from the vertex to the directrix? 0.125, also known as 1/8. So if I put 1/8 in here, I get 1 over 8 equals 1 over 4a. Well, what number makes that equation true? 2. More specifically, -2, right? Because really, it's the absolute value. So both 2 and -2 work, but we know the answer is -2 because it opens down. So we put a 2 here, and we have the equation. That's as hard as it gets. Okay? So letter I is the same basic problem, but this time they give us the focus instead of the vertex, which doesn't really matter. So vertex is at -5, 8. Do I know anything about the parabola's direction? I mean, just from that point. Do I know if it's up, down, left, or right? No. That's not enough information. We need to look at the focus. So the focus is negative 21/4 over 8. What is that as a decimal? So negative 5.25 comma 8. So negative 5.25 comma 8 is right here. So there's vertex. Here is the focus. Which way does this parabola open? Left. Parabolas always open toward the focus and away from the directrix. The focus is the reflection point on your satellite dish. It's the place where all those rays bounce back. So the focus has to be inside the parabola. So I know it opens to the left. It's going to look something like this. I don't know how open it is yet. So I know which equation to use. Which equation do I use? X minus h. Do I know h? Yeah, it's negative 5. So x plus 5 equals, yeah, you could. So, yeah, it doesn't matter if you have focus or directrix. Either one will work. Well, the equation determines if it's up or down. Is that what you, like the x equals equation is left or right, and the y equals equation is up or down. So you have to pick the x equals in this case. So what do we know about a? A is negative. Y minus 8 squared. So the direction of opening and the vertex tells me everything I need to know except the value of a. We know a is negative because it's going to the left. So what do I need to find a? Well, we could, I mean, the directrix is going to be right here, but the distance from focus to vertex is exactly the same as that distance. So calculating the directrix would take more time. We don't really need to. We need the focal distance. So how far away is the focus from the vertex? 0.25 or 1/4. 1 over 4. So I know that 1 over 4 is equal to 1 over 4a. Oh, that's easy. A is 1. So if you want to, you can write the a value there. If not, it doesn't matter. And that's the equation of that parabola. All right. This worksheet is not due till Monday. It's going on next term. Okay? The worksheet that you did yesterday is due today. Wait, no. The worksheet you did yesterday is also due Monday. If you've already handed it in, that's fine. We'll set it aside. Yes. I recommend in class today you do a couple of the first set and a couple of the second set and a couple in the third set. The third set is the hardest, so maybe you want to start there. That way I can help you before you leave. But enjoy your long weekend. Look at number 12. The answer for number 12 should have nothing but negatives in it. I believe it's a 4 that needs to be changed. So the answer for number 12, you need to change the answer to say negative 4. Yes. Number 12 should be a negative 4, not a positive 4. All right? Good luck.